Welcome back to another episode of the Zealous Podcast. I'm Rocky Snyder. This week, we're going to focus on soccer, professional soccer, with the USL Championship League. Not Major League Soccer, the MLS, but a different group in the U.S. The USL Championship has several teams, including Detroit City FC. And that's where we're going this week, talking to Sam Joyce, head of physical performance for this soccer club. And we're just going to get underway. Remember to be sure to follow us on Instagram, Rocky_Snyder, and subscribe to this channel. Hope you enjoy the show. Where did you grow up?
I'm from Leicester, so I'm a Leicester City fan.
Leicester City?
Massive Leicester City fan, yeah.
Oh my gosh, you must, what was that, 4 years ago? Was it 4 years ago, right?
Yeah, I had a season ticket at the time.
No way.
2016, yeah, I was there for that whole thing. It was unbelievable.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing.
Yeah,
so
it was.
Don't hold it against me, but I'm a Hotspurs fan. I like.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And but Leicester City, they shook the world. I mean,
it was
unbelievable.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I can't. Everywhere I go around the world now, when I say I'm from Leicester, everyone knows. Oh, you must have been happy in 2016 that season. You know, they all know the name Vardy. Like, it's such a huge thing. But the city itself, like, things beyond sport, the economy blew up for a few months. Like, the happiness levels in the city were through the roof. Like, it was amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, so, you know, I'm a Quakes fan because I'm in Santa Cruz, California, right over the hill of the Santa Cruz Mountains. We've got San Jose, so we've got PayPal Stadium, which is just a great time to go and just enjoy the Quakes. But Detroit, that's an interesting place. What is the soccer culture or football culture like in Detroit?
It's really, really cool, actually. So the club's 10 years old this year.
Yeah.
And the supporters I knew about them before I joined here. I knew about them from my old club because they've got a huge reputation of being some of the loudest, craziest fans in American soccer. They're like absolutely no compromise, come out at any point. Like, we just had our home opener and it was really cold, rainy, wet, and they had 5,500 in the stadium. Like, for this league, it's fantastic support, and they were loud the whole game. It's amazing. And they're really getting behind other things as well. So they want to drive the club and the community to be a good vehicle within the city, in the area. They play in a lower income area in Hamtramck in Michigan. That's where the stadium is, an old stadium. So they're really trying to help the community as well and drive other things outside the sport. So yeah, it's in my 5 weeks so far, 5.5 weeks, it's been amazing.
So what got you into, I'm just going to go right into it, but what got you into human performance, strength, conditioning, all that encompasses it?
So I went to, as soon as I knew I wasn't going to be a player, which was fairly soon because I'm not very good, I went to the University of South Wales, and that was to do sports coaching and performance. I wanted to be a football coach initially when I first, so that degree was really all encompassing. There was a coaching module, there was a performance analysis module, which is like the video stuff, and then there was a strength and conditioning module, and the lecturer was Ian Jeffries, and he was jumping on tables, he was running around the lecture theatre, he was amazing, and he really got a lot of us, not just me, he got a lot of us dialed into strength and conditioning and how awesome it can be, and passionate about it, almost like lighting the fire of it. So really, from that module, I wanted to move forward in that area. You know, I focused less on the coaching side and wanted to develop myself on that side. And as soon as I left, I finished my 3 years there, doing little placements here and there at Cardiff City Football Club and little bits and bobs. But all I did was get on LinkedIn and message 50, 60 clubs, just saying, can I come and do something for free? Can I come and shadow, intern, 1-2 weeks or a whole season, anything? And luckily, a club not too far from me, almost like one city over from Leicester, got back in touch, and I ended up being there for 6 years.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Good for you. That's a common story that I hear from a lot of the strength coaches and athletic trainers and performance coaches, sports science, that stretch out of school. They're just scratching for any opportunity to just get their foot in the door, and once in, they work their tails off, and things have a way of manifesting. So what team was that you were with 6 years?
That was Nottingham Forest. Just one, it's like 45-minute drive from Leicester, so not far at all.
Did your mates give you any trouble with going to Nottingham?
Absolutely, yeah. Leicester and Nottingham Forest don't like each other. So the first time I got to my dad's house and I was wearing my Forest kit, he told me to get changed. So I can't go in his house wearing that. But yeah, it was, after a while, it balanced out a little bit more.
Oh, okay. What were the biggest nuggets you learned with your time at Nottingham?
So that time was a really productive time. I mean, there's still a really successful academy team, but so I started in the academy. My first role was the 9s to 16s strength and conditioning coach. And then through my 6 years, I sort of worked through the age groups of the academy, and ended up working with the under 18 team. But there was the staff was quite fluid, so we could go into any gym sessions with the under 23s, the 18s. We had some guys who weren't necessarily playing for the first team at that point drop down. So working with a real range of people. So the first massive thing I took from it was how important relationships are, and developing relationships with individuals from all backgrounds, ages, ability levels. And that's something that's helped me over in the US as well. But yeah, so developing relationships. And then number 2, we had a head of strength and conditioning in the academy called Brent Dickinson, who came from rugby league. And I definitely see him as a big mentor. And he was really always reminding me how to be so detailed in your coaching, be anal about every joint, be anal, like you try and really, really nail down these movement patterns. We try to focus on almost like Kelvin Giles's movement literacy, squat, lunge, push, pull, hinge, rotate, brace, all those things, and try and be really anal at those younger age groups anyway to push that forward. So I really have taken a detail-oriented approach from him for sure.
Well, I find that fascinating that they started you in that age range, 9 to 16, 9 to 13. What was the age range?
9 to 16, yeah.
9 to 16, because I mean, that is one of the most critical times to be not only introducing and incorporating strength conditioning, but you have got so many different changes in the human physiology, in the hormonal changes, in the growth velocity, everything that is the most complex age bracket you could hope for. I mean, in some ways, and this is no offense to anybody in the upper realms of British Premier League or any other level of professional sports, but that's kind of like the easy street in some ways, because they already have a great background, a great work integrity or ethic established, and all you're doing is fine-tuning with sports science when you get to that level. Of course, you're dealing with million valued athletes, but that's almost like throwing you to the wolves to put you in the 9 to 16 in some way. I mean, that must have had your head spinning to be trying to design programs for a 9-year-old, or from the 9 to 11s, and then maybe the 11 to 13s, and then the 13 to 15 and 16 above. I mean, what was that like?
It was you. I mean, you're absolutely right. But to put a positive spin on it, it was an unbelievable opportunity. Oh, because there'd never been someone in that role before. There was some new rulings from the Premier League at that point, where each academy had to have a coach for those age groups. To sort of like fill that space. So there was nothing there. It was a clean slate for me and the other staff to build this program and build this physical pathway, which was great. So yeah, it took some time, but we started. We had some emphasis on multi-sport earlier on to get the guys moving in different planes and different movements that they're not going to get from soccer, and then trying to build this physical literacy pathway, whilst also, like you say, dealing with peak height velocity at certain points and the challenges that come with that, managing the on-field stuff as well. So a lot of challenges, and I think that's because being completely totally ruthless back over in England, I think if you make it to under 18s in an academy, you're still less than 1% chance of making it as a pro. So they see more importance as the closer you're getting to that first team, the closer you're getting age-wise, appropriate skill level-wise, is more important, because that's where you're going to, if you make the right thing, you can make the club. I think we made the club something like $90 million worth of players in that time I was there.
Wow, that's a lot of responsibility, obviously. So I've had several guests on in the past. One in particular is coming to mind is Dr. Greg Rose, who helped form the Functional Movement Screen, and he formed Titleist Performance Institute. And several years back, he was talking about long-term athletic development before most people were knowing even what LTAD really stood for. And he was speaking about training windows with the youth, and he kind of segmented these ages as to the times that we want to infuse different elements of conditioning. Not to say that that's always the golden rule, but I'm curious, Sam, with what you did in those years working with the youth, what did you find? Like when it came to the 9-year-olds, or was it solely related to their growth rate, or was it more like, their calendar year? But what did you find going from one age bracket to the next? Was there a common kind of theme that you needed to infuse into their training at this stage, that stage, and that stage?
Well, we found the guys that, so you can join an academy at any time. You can be scouted when you're 8 years old, and you can be scouted when you're 17, 16, whatever, to join in. So luckily for us, it was a positive thing that we found that the guys that were joining us at the older time didn't move as well as the guys that we'd had for longer. So we know we sort of had a few testing things in place, and we had a few observational things in place where we could start to develop these good movers. Some stuff based on Dan Baker's work and other bits and bobs. But so we would try and really absolutely smash the fundamentals. It's something I've taken into my career now with the senior guys. Try and be really, really good at simple things. I think a lot of people say it, but a lot of people still do it. They try and jump to the sexy exercises, or this team's doing this, so we must be doing VBT, blah, 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 etc. But until you've mastered the basics really, really well, then there's no point.
And the basics in this regard, hinge, push, pull, squat, that type of thing. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, those areas. So as soon as the guys start those gym sessions, the actual in the gym sessions would start consistently at 12 years old, under 13s, and those gym sessions would be based around those movements.
And I imagine at that stage, it's like pre-adolescence, pubescent kind of era. There, you're just developing proper technique, and the body is going to naturally strengthen. So you don't have to worry too much about what the load or the volume is. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we wouldn't necessarily track those things. So you wouldn't necessarily track the load every week, sort of thing, but like you would an older group. But for sure, if a kid was fantastic technique wise, and he looked like he could move on, and it's almost become too easy, we definitely didn't have a problem loading him up a little bit and challenging him in that way. So at that point, there's some guys that are biologically older than other guys. Right. So those guys will be able to push it a little bit more, and we had no problem with that. We definitely were in the camp of you can load someone at that age if they've got the right technique.
Beautiful. You mentioned testing to tell what kind of movers they are, the quality. What kind of tests are we talking about with that?
So some of it, like I said, was based off Dan Baker's work. Just some real basics. A squat pattern, a forward lunge, walking lunge pattern, with the younger age groups. And then as they got older, we had almost like we called it a modified FMS, but it wasn't really much like the Gray Cook FMS. That was almost just like the title. And it was just something that the head strength coach had worked with before and had some success through. And something that I've used since as well. It's just, again, same sort of thing, an overhead squatting pattern from a couple of angles, a pistol squatting pattern on a box and on the floor, some hopping and sticking, some isometric contraction stuff as well, just to see, like a little score, almost like a little scoreboard, just through your eye and through, can you see, okay, this joint angle, what's happening here, and is there some overpronation here, and trying to give these guys a score. So it's, I guess, semi-subjective because it's off our eyes, but also we do have a scoreboard sort of typed out in terms of what you are looking for and what you're looking to see as a good performance, and then those guys get scored. And then retrospectively looking back, it did fit in with other things that would point to that being a fairly accurate measure of strength and good movement in those areas.
Yeah, very cool. So um, part of what I love learning about with these conversations is the path that professionals take to get them to the level that they have reached thus far. And many are not satisfied with where they are. Of course, that's probably one of the key kind of characteristics of people that succeed, is that they're never satisfied. So after your work in Nottingham,
Yeah.
what inspired you to go elsewhere? What happened? Did an opportunity arise, or did a coaching shift change and everyone was let go? What happened?
Um, nothing too drastic like that. I felt personally that I was becoming almost stale. I was stagnating in the role a little bit. There's a few really good practitioners in that environment, and they weren't going to move on anytime soon. We had been doing well, so if I wanted to progress and challenge myself, I had to move and go and do something different. I was also, in my semi-personal life, I was struggling with my identity being just my job.
Yeah.
So like, I am a strength coach, or I am a sports scientist, and that's it. There's nothing else. So I was finding my whole identity through that. So I knew that also needed to change to become a happier, better person. I knew I wanted to work abroad at some point. I wanted to challenge myself. I thought it was going to be Europe. I thought I was going to have to go out and, Austria, Germany, somewhere, learn a new language. And then super randomly, I got an opportunity out in the States. So it came from nowhere. LinkedIn again. It's been a great tool for me. So at that time, I'd started a podcast as well, called Growing Up Strong. It was about youth, adolescents, and youth athletes. And I'd been putting things out, little infographics or episodes, and here and there, tweeting it, LinkedIn, and all that stuff. And randomly one day, someone put me in a message with a coach that had just got a job out here in the States. He was a British coach as well, and said, "Sam, this is my friend. He's just taken over a team in the US. He's looking for," at that time, it was a sports science intern, with the likelihood of a job at the end of the internship. So I wasn't going to leave my secure job in the UK for something that didn't sound that secure. I know there was a promise of a job, but we know how sport works. That can change very quickly. So me and this coach kept in touch for a year, which was great. This whole next season, we had Skype calls at the time. It was back and forth. We spoke about philosophy. We spoke about how we would work physically on the training field, what we expected from games, etc., which was great because you don't usually get that much of an in-depth talk with your coach before you go in and start a new place. Yeah. And then a year later, a role was created, and I flew out to join full-time in that position.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And how is your semi-personal identity going now?
A lot better. Yeah, a lot better. It's just one of those things that I guess you don't recognize when you're really in the thick of it, when you're young. And, I'm just trying to, and I obviously don't regret any of that. I really was getting my head down, trying to get a job, trying to get a role. It's so competitive with thousands of graduates every year and only a few spots. And you have to do things outside the box, and you have to work probably some hours unpaid that you didn't want to do. But I definitely think it's worth it to review that side of things throughout your career as well. I think it's a big important part of it.
And you said you didn't have to you wanted to learn a foreign language, so you came here. So I imagine, how's your foreign language and American English? Is that going pretty well?
Yeah, I said to people when I moved out here, "Oh, at least it's not a language barrier." That's wrong. There definitely is. It definitely is. Yeah. As soon as someone told me about biscuits and gravy, I was so confused, because biscuits is cookies back home. I was like, what is this?
Oh, that's great. And now you're in the Detroit area, and a growing community of soccer or European football fans, how we'll say it. Do you have any World Cup athletes on the team, prospective World Cup athletes?
We don't at this point. It's this team's first year in this league. We've just joined. So it's a step up for the whole team. It's a step up for the club. It's a step up in terms of standard of play and things like that. So it's a great challenge for this year, and it's a really exciting time. But as I don't think so, as I understand, I'm not sure there's anyone that's going to be on that stage.
Well, the real question is, are you going to shift your allegiance from England to the US when it comes to World Cup? Not a chance.
No, yeah, it's a one-word. It's a one-word answer. That one's a one-word answer. But I would say that I do root for the US men's national team and the US women's national team. My partner used to work for the Washington Spirit, so so we definitely have some supporting allegiances there as well. Yeah.
Well, this time we'll at least make it to the cup,
Yes,
or not to the
so.
finals, but
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot better this time around. Very excited for that to happen.
Yeah.
So now that you were training the youth, the academy, and now you're MLS and you're training top professionals that are being recruited from all over, right? It's not just US players, but we've got some European players coming. And what is the biggest challenge now moving up into that position?
Yeah. I would say it's I listened to the Adam Parr's episode on here.
Yeah.
And similar sort of thing to what he said. The challenge is the variety, the range of backgrounds, the range of cultural differences. I'm okay at this club. We've got all English speakers, so we're okay. I'm okay in that stance. But at my previous clubs, I worked with guys that were, I had to sort of try and translate through diagrams or learn a few phrases of Spanish or Portuguese here and there, which is definitely a challenge. And when I first joined, there was players that were older than me, so I'm not going to tell those guys, forget everything you've done in your career. You've had a successful career, but now it's my way. Obviously, I can't do that. So we go back to what I mentioned before about building those relationships, and it's just I see myself as a service to the coach and to the players. So it's how can I help you develop in this area? And if they're doing something, it's like, okay, I've seen this, but I've also seen maybe try this and this could work and help you a little bit more, and just trying to influence those guys a little bit more. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got the young guys that are fresh out of college or, that haven't really been in a professional environment yet, maybe. And I can really mold those guys to, this is the right thing to do at this point. And, there's so many areas, not just the weight room or not just on the field, that you can prepare and be well. I really like that Paul Bryant coach of a quote, saying, like he said, it's not the will to win that matters. Everyone's got that. It's the will to prepare to win. And that's the thing. And I really, really love that one because it's so right in that you're only on the pitch for an hour and a half a week for the game, and then everything else is preparation or recovery. So how can we do that right?
Very cool. So inside the weight room, we've spoken about it a little bit. There's the fundamentals, the foundations, the hinge, the push, the pull, the brace, all that. Once they establish an understanding and a proficiency in such movements, and they're loading into these things, what kind of offshoots, what go-to movements, if any, you have that are very specific to your athletes do you tend to go to? Are there any that are accessory lifts, that are derivations, other than those core lifts?
Yeah, there will be some for sure, and it's things that as a department we've had experience with having a success with, and also we're trying to take things from literature as well. I know that's difficult, but there's so much coming out all the time, and the validation of different things. But yeah, so I know for an example would be a Copenhagen. It doesn't necessarily fit into one of those previous, I guess, sort of brace, but not really on some of those previous categories. But it is something that we definitely see as beneficial for soccer players, especially because so many injuries are in that groin area. So there are little things in there that will work, and they'll be a part of our gym sessions. They won't necessarily be smaller accessory lifts. They'll be a main part of our gym sessions. I like to work with supersets, so there'll maybe be a superset from our pillar exercises.
And how much of your entire strength conditioning program involves the weight room compared to like on the pitch or anywhere else for that matter?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned before, I'm only 5 weeks into this role, so I'm just drip feeding things at the moment. It's not where I want it to be yet, but it will be eventually. I'd like to be in the weight room for a dedicated session twice a week at least. So at the moment we have matched on a match day +2, say we've got a recovery group, and part of their recovery session will be an upper body and a core lift. And then it's optional for the other guys as well. They want to join in. And so far, this group of athletes has been great. They all want to jump in and get it done. And then Tuesdays will be we have Wednesdays off at the moment. So Tuesdays will be our main strength lift, and it'll also be our main strength day on the field. So we'll try and promote some soreness. We'll try and promote some adaptation there, because we know they've got the Wednesday off. And then I'd like to introduce something on a Thursday. Now that's going to either be sort of individual athletic development, to not many exercises at all, some accessory stuff, some stuff based on previous injury or any screening that we've done. And also I want to try and incorporate some power, some plyometric stuff, because I know it's not going to produce as much soreness. We're closer to the game on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. But that could be a combination of the weight room and the on-field warm-up.
How would you determine volume when it comes to plyometrics? What kind of indicators or markers, so that you don't do too much and takes away from athletic ability the day or two before a match?
Mainly contacts. We try and number of contacts. Yeah, so we try and work off that. Obviously, they're going to get a lot more within practice anyway. They're going to get those movements in practice as well when they're training with a soccer ball. So it's not that the overall picture, I guess, isn't that accurate, because we can get some external loading from the GPS, but not in terms of number of contacts. But yeah, within our sessions, we try and push for keeping a sort of a focus on that.
And then unilateral versus bilateral contacts, what are we talking percentage wise? Is it 50-50? Is it mainly unilateral with a smattering of bilateral, or is it the other way around?
Yeah, it's mainly uni, because again, from things I've seen and experienced in the past and taken some literature stuff, I think it's an underdeveloped area and an underworked on area. And it's what most of the movements are in soccer, right? You're hardly ever with 2 feet on the floor.
Right. And so with that too, most athletes are growing up with a dominant kicking and a dominant bracing leg. And so those roles, even though they may be as ambidextrous as possible, they still have that underlying kind of nerve pathway or motor recruitment that's going on. So how do you discern, like when you're doing single leg contacts with plyometrics, are you looking for certain, like you were saying yourself, like I want to know what every joint is doing, I want to be very anal. How do you do that when it comes to discerning between left leg contact, pronation, landing, deceleration versus right?
Yeah, it's very difficult to do that, especially this is one level below the MLS, so we're not blessed with a huge budget or cameras that we can work on those things and a huge amount of staff to observe. So it's almost like we just have to be cautious with that stuff. So the approach at the moment, I would say, was let's focus on some unilateral stuff in the gym strength wise, so we know we're working on it, we know we're improving on it. And until we've got a good cycle through, 2 or 3 cycles of our strength work with it, let's not push the other side too much. I know they're going to get it in the training, and I know they'll get some stuff from us, but I'm not going to really push the plyometric side of it until I know, or until I'm comfortable with how much they can tolerate.
That's good. That's sound advice, definitely. So when you've got athletes, and this is in the past too, it's not just in Detroit, because I know you're just kind of getting going and developing programs, but when we're talking about returning the injured athletes back in terms of return to play and getting them back on the pitch, are there certain markers in the weight room that they need to hit in order for you to talk to the athletic trainer or the physical therapist or whomever, the coaches, and go, okay, we're there, I think he's ready? How do you determine that?
Yes, definitely. It's been different throughout my career on that side of things. So again, back in England, the budget was a little bit better, and the equipment we were able to get things, some valve stuff like the Nord board, groin bar and things like that. So you almost we had a baseline for everybody. So say it was the hamstring strain, where close you're trying to get back with the Nord board. You know what you're trying to get back to. We know we need to expose these guys to sprinting. We've got the GPS to tell us how close they are to getting to their top speed. You know, if they're getting within 90% of their top speed and there's no issues, we know we can push them a little bit more. We know we can, you know, so there's ways to monitor these things when you haven't got the budget necessarily. You just have to be smart with it. So luckily we have got the GPS. We can focus on those things. But when I came to the US, something that was very different was we had off-site physical therapy. So rehab wise, I didn't see an injured player until they were close to coming back, because they would just go out to a physical therapist on the advice of the team doctor, you know. And the club had a partnership with a medical healthcare network. Those guys can provide physical therapists, you know, the great facilities out there. So the injured athlete would go out, would work with those physical therapists. We'd get a report back from those guys, and we'd move forward from there. So that was very different to England. So another cultural difference there, where we'd have to deal with, you know, the athletic trainer, myself, the physical therapists, the athlete, the team doc, and we'd all be, you know, you're trying to sift through the noise almost to get to exactly, you know, from my perspective, is this guy ready to be back on the field and then ready to be pushed on the field?
Yeah. So quite different right now.
Yeah.
But the fact that you still have a really team approach, whether it's on site, off site, is quite nice to bounce some ideas around. So
yeah.
What is that like? I mean, we mentioned communication, but mainly communication amongst the athletes. How is it creating that communication web between the coaching staff, the athletic trainer, the AT, or the PT, the physical therapist, or for that matter, if there's a team nutritionist that is hired, or anybody that is outside of all the people that are off the pitch? What's that like?
Yeah, I see that as a major part of my role. Like I said before, the relationships with the athletes are important, but same with staff. Relationships have to be close, relationships have to be open. I definitely don't want to be the kind of person that says it's my way in this department or the highway sort of thing. And as I said before, I see it as a service to the athlete and to the coach. So I want the service to be the best it can. If we can add a nutrition element to it, that's great. If we can add an experienced athletic trainer's point of view, not absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I really put a priority on that communication, whether that be the simplest thing to an email chain with everybody on it, to frequent phone calls, to face-to-face visits. Zoom calls now make it a lot easier as well. So yeah, there's definitely I definitely place importance on that.
And when it comes to like your overall, your macro cycle, your program design that is formulating now, how much of the previous season's strength and conditioning programs are you holding on to? I mean, this is going to be kind of a tricky thing, I imagine. It's almost like a certain level of diplomacy that, okay, I can see that these elements I'm not going to want to change right away because it's going to make too much turbulence in and outside the weight room, but these are the low-hanging fruits that I can tweak just enough, and I'm going to put in these flavors and see how that goes. Is that where your mind is right now as you're approaching this new position?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, like I said to you earlier, this is my fourth season in this league, but only one of those seasons we actually kept hold of over 10 players. Otherwise, it's a huge change in the roster. So when I arrived, when I arrived my first role, there was 5 returners in a group of 25.
Wow.
So it's a reset for those guys. You know, we're looking where did they come from? What clubs do they work with? Where have they been? What they've been doing? This year, I think it's 7. So same again. I think there's 7 returners from previous year. Like I said before, it's a step up in league. So we've added more to the roster, and some guys unfortunately got cut, etc. But so it's almost a reset. So it's what have these guys been doing before? You know, trying to talk to their ex old clubs and call around to these different places to see, trying to get a picture of each guy and build this build this information dossier almost of each player, and then build out from there. But until we can really nail down the nitty gritty stuff, that's why I'll always revert to movement competency, because I know that's going to be helpful for every guy, no matter what, no matter where they've been. I know this movement competency is going to be great, and then we can load from there through observation in our sessions.
And what about the other elements we haven't spoken about when it comes to conditioning and just getting the body to be in an optimal state of performance, like soft tissue work?
Yeah.
How do you address soft tissue? And when it comes to like mobility, when it comes to, well, we'll start with that. How about just soft tissue? What do you guys do for soft tissue work for these players?
Well, I hate soft tissue injuries. Obviously it's a major part of my role to avoid any of those non-contact injuries. So we're trying to incorporate that soft tissue and that mobility. We're trying to incorporate it throughout the week in different places. So mobility wise, we like to almost periodize our warm-up. We like to have different themes on different days. So if it's a match day +2, it will look different to a match day -2.
How so?
Just something simple as match day +2. We'll spend more time on the floor. We'll spend more time mobilizing again. We'll spend more time, especially if we've just come off a flight. I know the guys will be sitting in one position for 2-3 hours. So we'll try and lengthen out those muscles that have been shortened the whole time. We'll try and almost reset them back to where they would have been before.
A lot of open chain stuff on
exactly.
that day then?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then on a let's say Thursday's match day -2, I know the session's going to be a certain way. I know the area sizes are going to be a certain thing. So we prepare the guys on that day for that session. At the same time, we'll try and include some of the stuff that you were talking about there. Yeah.
So then you're switching over to like closed chain mechanics.
So, yeah, on some of the days. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. Very good. And then when it comes to like the tools that you use, are we talking about the typical foam roller? I'm sure the percussion guns or massage guns, like bits and bobs, as you say, but balls and sticks. Are there any tools that you use right now outside of that realm? You're like, yeah, this is where I really like to go when it comes to soft tissue work, like spoons, traditional Chinese medicine kind of stuff, or anything like that.
I can't say there is at the moment. No, we're pushing to, like I say, increase the service. I'm pushing for a massage therapist. I like that. I know the players like that in terms of they definitely feel a benefit afterwards. So I'm pushing for some actual hands-on work. But yeah, like you say, we do have the massage guns, we do have the foam rollers, and the guys are pretty good about that. Yeah. I keep saying that quote about preparing to win and having the preparation. So they're I'm really probably annoying them at this point about that.
And so what about recovery, like right after matches? I imagine with the budget the way it is, probably there isn't necessarily a team nutritionist either, but that's probably something that you're looking to expand upon, hopefully without having a nutritionist on staff. What role do you take in that?
Yeah, so you're right, we always look at different avenues to try and help like that. So if we can get someone part-time or something like that along those lines, that'd be great. But again, especially with the reset, it being a new roster and things like that, and me being new to this club, my first go-to thing is let's try and do the simple things very well. Let's try and do the simple things as well as we possibly can. So if you're trying to eat this supplement and that supplement, but you're only sleeping 6 hours a night, there's no point. You're missing the point. So let's try and focus on hydration, nutrition or refueling, and sleep in terms of recovery. So we'll just try and do those the best we can. Try and ingest carbohydrates and protein as within half an hour after coming off the field. Let's try and what can we do to help sleep patterns after games, after training. And if there's something we can help with that, then let's do this. We've just managed to get a fantastic partnership with a mattress company here in Michigan. So all the guys have got brand new mattresses that's going to help those guys out. And there's little things that we can affect these guys' lives every day, rather than just saying, I think you need to get better sleep. These guys have not necessarily had a full sporting education. So it's just trying to do the simple things really well, especially with the amount of noise that athletes will see this at the moment with everything they see on in social media and in the news on ESPN. LeBron's doing this, or Tom Brady's doing this. Where do you get your information from for these guys? So I'm almost trying to sift through that and help them just to do the simple things really well.
Yeah, very good. That really great information. I'm thinking about the MLS season and your season. Are they fairly synchronized?
Yeah.
And how many matches or games do you have in your season compared to, say, MLS?
Yeah, they are fairly synchronized. I think the MLS starts slightly earlier than us. But I think that could have been just because of the World Cup this year, but I'm not sure. We have 34 regular season games. That's before postseason.
And how many games are under your belt right now?
2.
Okay.
Yeah. We lost 1 and we won 1, so we're okay so far. We're happy with where we are.
So when you're on the field, when you're on the sidelines there, what are you looking for? Because you look through a different lens than the strategic coaches necessarily. You're looking through the lens of performance. What are you looking for with the players when they're out there playing?
It's a weird one because, like I said before, almost my work is happening during the week and before and after. In the game, I can't really influence it on the spot. No. But what I'll look for is, first of all, are the guys robust enough to deal with this game? No one's getting hurt. There's not a crazy amount of cramps happening at the end, all of these things. And secondly, like I said, I want it to be a service to the coach, and I want to provide the coach with players that can do what he's demanding. So if we're a team that presses really high and needs high intensity, repeated sprints, then are they able to do that? If the coach is really huge on winning your personal duel, your 1v1 battles, are they able to do that? Have they got the strength to do that? Can they outjump their opponent? Can they, dominate physically and be relentless on that side of things? So, yeah, I'm working towards, I guess, being dominant on the field in a 1v1 and team scenario.
So are you taking notes? I'm just curious, like when you're watching, are you on your phone and putting notes in there or on a pad of paper going, okay, this player in particular is really having a hard time cutting left, or really having a hard time matching up 1v1. I think this is where we need to go with his training. I know it's early in the season. I know you're just there, but like based on your previous experiences and so on, is that part of your mindset, part of your role, or is it something different?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say I sit on the bench and take notes. Very occasionally, there'll be a moment where I'll write down the time, say like that's a clip of the video I want to get, and it could be a positive or a negative. It could be one of our guys has outjumped his opponent easily and won a crucial header. I want to get that clip and show the player and say, like, this is great. Look at this. This is that stuff we've been doing in the gym. This is your hard work, and it's showing on the field. And let's push on, And then, like you say, occasionally there'll be something where I remember one time there was a moment where the defender almost turned the wrong way, like it turned a long way around, because that was his dominant side of turning, rather than a quick snap the other way. And we conceded a goal, not necessarily because of that, but it was part of the period of play where we conceded. And I took a video of that as well and just said, okay, this wasn't your fault. I'm not saying all the blame's on you, but this is something that we can change. This is something that we can work on together. And we did, and it did improve. And it's not a dressing down. It's not a blame situation. I guess it's a tool to use to help this development.
So how did you do that? I'm really curious, because everyone has a favored way of rotating. Yeah. And there's that counter action that is not in a split second. You're going to typically go with the favored pattern. So how did you disrupt that?
Repetition for a start. We had to go again and again and again and again on both sides. We had to focus on unilateral strength work. And I suppose I said it got better, but I guess there's no actual measure of that. But I can say that the first thing didn't happen again. So I can't necessarily claim credit for improving that situation or that player. But if I can affect it 1, 2, 5%, then I think we can have an effect for sure on these athletes.
With the season now underway, and typically the match is on a Saturday, but occasionally there'll be a midweek match, like on a
Yeah, yeah,
Wednesday or something like that. But that doesn't happen on a regular basis. So, and you've mentioned like match plus two or match minus two or match minus one and so on. That's how you look in the in season in regards to your conditioning. And that's got to be a little tricky in terms of trying to periodize,
yeah,
especially when you consider travel time. Is this going to be a home match or is it going to be away? And how many days away? What's that going to do to their sleep patterns in different
yeah.
time zones and so on? How do you start juggling all that together?
So I would say our conditioning work in terms of developing athletes is mainly done in pre-season. That's when we drive it. That's when we push athletes. That's when we, the adaptation is going to happen more because we know.
Are you allowed enough time in the preseason to actually do the effective conditioning? Because I'm thinking like the NFL and the NFL Players Association, the union there works with the NFL, and really most of the injuries occur at the beginning of the season in the first 3 or 4 weeks of
Right.
regulation play, and they're attributing it mainly to not having enough time to really condition the athletes to prepare for the beginning of the season. Is that the same case in your league, or is it not necessarily?
I don't think necessarily. No, I think without having any solid data in front of me, I would almost anecdotally say it's the opposite. At the end of a long sort of grinding season, when you're in the final third maybe of your games, that's when there could be some wear and tear. That's when there could be some fraying. I don't know. That's when there could be some mental fatigue almost as well, some plateauing. So yeah, that's an interesting one. But I would say we're okay time wise on preseason. Obviously,
Nice.
People like me would always love more. But we're able to. What we're looking for on the field, first and foremost, is to prepare our players for the worst case scenario. So the worst case scenario for this season is 3 games in a week. So load wise, can we prepare our guys to play 90 minutes 3 times in 7 days?
How often is that going to happen?
Not very often. It won't be very often, but
wow.
It does happen 1 or 2 times. So preparing those guys to be able to do that, to be able to tolerate that amount of load without getting hurt, that's number one concern for pre-season. And if we're able to do that, then in-season periodization is not necessarily about developing them on the conditioning side. It's more about periodizing for the game, periodizing for the maybe the period of the season. Maybe we'll taper down for the playoffs at the end. The little things like that is more about the performance at that point, because I can go to the coach and say, this guy has increased his max aerobic speed by this much, but if we've not won on the weekend, then who cares?
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned near the end of the season when you want your athletes to be in their peak performance, but there is a level of fatigue, mental or physical, setting in. What kind of strategies are you going to be implementing into your program to try to offset that so that you're actually getting them in the optimal place they need to be in, rather than at a critical point where injuries could ensue a lot higher because of the fatigue?
Yeah, I think there's definitely things we can do. It's that feel like a reset and feel like a break for the players. So we'll periodize in the weight room and we'll periodize on the field, and through those two combining, we can. I feel like we've got a good grasp on when we can come off the guys and give them a little bit of a break, and when to push them. We're lucky enough to have some small gaps in the schedule where we might be able to give the guys, maybe one or 2 extra off days than they would normally have. Potentially to have them have some family time, forget about sport for a couple of days and go and relax on the beach somewhere with your family. Go and see your in-laws and just talk about things that aren't soccer maybe, and just have that mental reset. I think is a huge part of it. And that comes with having a great coach that's open to those ideas and open to the well-being of an athlete as a human, rather than just another robot on the training field.
Well, it sounds like at least they have a great strength coach on their hands there, Sam.
Appreciate
I
it.
I appreciate your time and your knowledge and the experience that you've shared. to the listening audience. This has been great. Moving into, well, I'll just say, usually I just say at the end here, if people want to learn more about you, obviously we connected through LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
So you can always go to your LinkedIn page, and I'll get the descriptions and the links below in the descriptions here. But other places like Instagram, where can people follow you on social media?
I think Twitter is probably the best place to catch me for this kind of stuff. And my Twitter is coach_Joycey, Joycey. And that's where I'll be probably most interactive with this side of things. Yeah.
Excellent. And I know you're just settling in there, but what's your big, hairy, or audacious goal? Like 5-10 years down the road, where do you want to be? Not that this will influence anything that's going on right now, but everyone's got goals. So what's yours?
Yeah, it's a weird one, because I used to be that guy that was like, I definitely want to work for England at the World Cup. I want to win trophies, this and this. But as I've got a little bit, I mean, I'm 31, but as I got a little bit older, I guess I have really enjoyed people that I've previously worked with, keeping in touch and saying, you really helped me with this, or thanks for your input, you've helped my career, or I really enjoyed working with you, or, it's not been the same since you left, or all of those things. It's a little bit of an ego boost, but at the same time, it's nice to know that I definitely genuinely had an impact on these guys. Some of them are playing in the English Premier League now, some of them are playing abroad, some of them are, I'm still with some of them. So I would say I want to be a good person first and foremost in life in general, but then I want to make a good impact on every environment and every individual that I work with. But other than that, that's it.
Sounds like you're on your way to achieving that goal. Sam, thanks so much for being on.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap for another episode of the Zealous Podcast. I want to thank Sam Joyce for coming on. And next week, we're heading down to Miami, staying with the USL Championship League and talking to the folks down there about what they're doing to get their athletes to get ready for the rest of the season and hopefully get to the Cup. Be sure to subscribe in the meantime and follow us on Instagram, Rocky_Snyder. Hope you have a good week.